Hello and welcome to an interview that I am doing with the lovely Nisha. Am I going to pronounce her last name right? Ganatra? Did I pronounce that
Oh,
right?
wow. You got the T that you did the Indian pronunciation. Most people say Ganatra, like Sinatra. But but if I'm in India once in a while, someone will bust out with the Ganatra.
Well, that's awesome because I am awful at pronouncing names. So if I got anywhere close, that makes me happy.
Very close.
So I want to, just fully admit that I was not very familiar with your work until last year when I was at
Okay.
Sundance and I got to be at the Eccles for the world premiere of Late Night.
Oh, wow. That was an amazing screening. I'm so glad you were there.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I love being there. I love seeing you and Mindy and everyone there together and just seeing the reaction of the film. And then I looked back on your filmography and it's amazing. You've been doing this for quite some time, both in television and film, and you directed some of my favorite television shows, including The Mindy Project and Netflix's Love, which I absolutely
Oh,
love.
yes. It is such a good show. Yeah. I've only been doing TV for like the last 4 years. It took me a long time to break into TV, but I was sort of toiling away in indie films and then I did TV, which then weirdly led me back to the indie film of Late Night.
No, I think that was a great film, and you have another. I think this film is actually even better than Late Night,
Oh, thank
and
you.
this movie is The High Note, which I had the absolute pleasure of watching earlier in the week. And honestly, between this movie and Valley Girl during this whole quarantine thing have been
Yes.
the light that I needed, the happiness that I needed. So thank you so much for making this movie.
Oh, thank you. That is so nice. That it definitely was a movie I wanted to make that was sort of those big, hopeful, happy studio movies that we used to get all the time. And then they got all dark and twisty and they stopped making like fun rom-coms for a while. And I'm not sure why, but hopefully they will start making them again.
Netflix took them all.
Yeah, that's right. That's probably right. At least Universal is doing it. Universal seems to be putting forward some good comedies.
Yeah, I agree. There and I want to kind of first start off with this interview. I'm very curious. Um, Obviously, and I don't mean to start this off on a sour note, but
No, please.
obviously the movie was supposed to come out theatrically,
Yes.
and now you're going on VOD, which seems to be this new thing that studios have been toying with both
Yep.
Universal and WB and other studios kind of thinking about it. Um, for for you as a filmmaker, what was your initial reaction when you heard that news?
Well, I mean, you've seen it, so you know we shot on widescreen format and we shot on anamorphic and we did, a full surround sound Atmos mix for the music and for so on the one hand, it's a bummer that everyone's not going to get to see the full artistry of the incredible crew and the technical work that was done. I think is really stunning on this film. Um, we do get to be at a few drive-ins, which I'm psyched about. I'm like gonna go check out that experience. But given the state of the world and the pandemic, it did feel like, when are we gonna go back to movie theaters? And it is such an uplifting, feel-good, hopeful movie that it felt like the more responsible thing to do was put the movie out this way and keep everybody safe and healthy. And we're all just kind of wading through this like event this life once in a lifetime I hope event. So it did like you know the filmmaker in me was like, oh, but I want everyone to see it on a big screen and I want to watch a big audience watch it together, and the human in me is saying this is the better way to go, Nisha, calm down. Like,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's an interesting feeling because when
yeah.
I'm someone who, and I will stand by this to the end of time, that I'm all about going to a movie theater and
Mm.
having that experience. And
Yeah, and I
this
did think like, why not sit on it? Let's hold it. It's not like the movie's going to get dated. We can hang on to it. But then I think it was that thing of, well, when will they open again, and what will it be like when movie theaters do open? What's the glut of movies going to be in? How long do you wait? And it's interesting. I don't know. I know some movies are opening this summer, and curious what's going to happen.
Yeah, I know. I'm curious too. Um, so I'm curious about how you actually got involved with this, and what was it about the script that made you want to do it?
Well, I read Flora Greason script. Ali Lowy from Working Title called me, and whenever Working Title calls, it's like, I mean, it's just been a dream to do a Working Title movie because every time I see that Working Title logo come up on the theater, I'm always like, it's going to be a movie I love. And so that was just kind of a no-brainer. As soon as I heard Working Title, Focus, Universal, I was like, okay, what is it? And then I read the script, and it just has these two really beautiful female lead parts, and the women are nuanced and complex, and they don't turn on each other, they don't like fight. There's no villain that they stab each other in the back. It's really just a pretty interesting movie about two women who are at a point in their lives where they're either going to take a big risk or they're not, and they're going to take the safe road. And I think I'm just really excited about movies that encourage women to take risks and then encourages them greatly and rewards them greatly for taking that risk, rather than punishing them or having them turn on each other. I just really like that this movie ultimately shows you what it's like when we are each other's biggest allies and how we can support each other. And that you just feel hopeful. Like it's a movie that says follow your dreams and work really hard and they'll come true. And I think that's just a fun message that I used to get when I went to the movies. I used to get that message all the time, and that's why I dared to become a filmmaker. So I just love that I got to make one of those movies that tells people like dare to dream, dream really big, work even harder, and it'll come true.
I I have to say you hit upon a lot of the things that I was actually going to address. I love the fact that you have this very strong female centric film.
Mhm.
And what's so great about it is that it's just like natural. It feels lived in. It feels like you're living in a regular world, and it's
Yeah.
not overly preachy. It's just these are these two women. They're in their roles, and they're very complicated characters in some ways, and yet they're very simplistic in other ways.
Hmm.
And I love that there's that back and forth between the two characters, and like they each have like their own personal demons that they're trying to overcome, but the movie doesn't vilify them at all. There is no villain in the movie. It's just a real slice of life movie that you can
Yeah.
see from like almost like a millennial standpoint, and then someone who's like lived in the industry and kind of has been a veteran. And
Yeah.
I just love the two dynamics of those two women characters. And I think I said this in my review, and I will tell it to you. I really think you've gotten the best Dakota Johnson performance out of her to date.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's, I mean, I got into directing to work with actors and get performances. So to me, the biggest compliment for my directing is to say something like that, that they're fantastic performances. And I think so. I think she's really fun to watch. She's very like, you know, easy. Like she's got that star power thing. But to me, what I always saw Dakota in comedies was she never got the joke. Like she got to be the straight man, but she didn't get to sort of be the comedy driver. So I was really curious to see like how is it if she is the one telling the jokes and how does that go?
Yeah, she really surprised me in this movie. Because I feel like unfortunately for her career so far, she's almost kind of had the Kristen Stewart syndrome, which is what I call, where like she was in part of a big franchise that
Yeah.
like a lot of like regular people really liked, and like critics and people who like really focus on film and study film are kind of like, I don't understand. And
Yeah.
now she's slowly starting to take on roles that I think are pushing her and are daring. And I just, it shocked me because I watched this movie and I was like, oh my God, like I really love her in this movie. And I'm like, maybe I will like start becoming a bigger fan because of like roles like this. So
Wow.
kudos to
That's
you.
pretty awesome. Yeah. I love that Kristen Stewart complex. That is true because you're right. Then
I've
they
been supporting Kristen Stewart for like the longest time. So
I
like
know she's
I
so good.
feel that way. But I mean, a lot of people still shit on her because like of Twilight. And honestly, she's come a long way.
I will go back because I remember hearing everybody talking so much smack about Twilight, and I watched the first one, the Catherine Hardwicke one, and I thought it was great. Like I tapped into my teenage girl self and just was like, "Give it all to me! It is amazing. The colors were so cool. The like." she really took some risks there with the design and the casting. Like this girl that's just wearing flannel shirt and t-shirt and doesn't care about trying to be like perfect and pretty in every shot. It was refreshing. It was just like, who is this actress and what is she doing and why is she so smart and riveting? I thought she's awesome.
Yeah, I think she was too. I honestly don't get the Twilight hate. Like I understand like
Yeah.
it's made for a specific audience, but
Yeah.
like I never really hated those movies. I just thought they were like okay, they exist.
Yeah.
That's the way I looked at them. Just being honest. I wanted to ask you about working with Tracy, and obviously, there's a lot of conversation about this film. Is that it's like, is it about like, is it paying homage to her mom? Things of that nature. But I felt like you really made the character her own, and like it was
Mhm.
fully realized. Was that something that was in the script, or was that something that you had to work with her directly on?
I think both. I mean, it was a really well written character in the script, and then Tracy brought so much more to it that Flora and I could have never known that Tracy knew growing up as Diana Ross's daughter. So she really brought this nuance and these layers and this vulnerability that I think made the character much more whole and unique and compelling because she just could bring this to life in a way that was unexpected but also fun, because you do want to see these people be larger than life and have their diva moments. But she really brought the vulnerability as well throughout the whole performance. It wasn't like I loved Meryl Streep in Devil Wears Prada, but there's only that one scene where the veil comes down and she cries about her husband, right? Like Tracy really managed to keep that veil up and down throughout the whole performance. And I thought it was so incredibly well done.
It's funny you mentioned that movie, and we had a conversation yesterday. I'm also a founder of a critics organization. We did a weekly show
Oh,
yesterday,
wow.
and we were talking about your film. And it was funny because the Devil's Wear product came up, and they were basically saying that this movie is better structured in the way that you actually feel for Tracy's character,
Yeah.
and you actually understand where she's coming from. Where like only in that scene do you have that one moment where like she lets her guard down, but this you can see it sprinkled throughout. And I think
Yeah.
again, kudos to you, kudos to the writing, kudos to Tracy.
Oh, thank you. Why do
Um,
you, I mean, you have you said it's a critics organization?
yeah,
What
the
do you,
Hollywood Critics Association.
oh, wow. I'm a little like, one thing we were sort of curious about is it seems like some of the early reviews were sort of uh, taking us to task for not being a darker, more serious look at the music industry. And I was like, oh, no, that's not what we're doing. Because actually, I feel like so many music movies do that already. They turn to like addiction and the sadness and the loneliness or depression. And I just was like, you know what? It's true. Like there are so many shades and so many people in our industry, but it's really fun what we get to do. Like we get to be a part of the music industry. You get to be a part of the film industry. Like it's it's a fun big life. Like to have a creative life and to be successful in the music industry is a really fun ride. And I feel like I just wanted to make sure to capture that too, to show like how fun it is to lead a creative life and be good at it, And so that was something that I was another a critic. You guys are so awesome because critics like help you realize what you're doing. Like somebody pointed out that there are two women who are really confident and competent and don't apologize for it. Like nobody bumbles or has some sort of like dimming of their light to say like don't be too threatened by these two women who are really good at what they do. They really trip over everything or they can't walk in heels or something. Like there's no moment like that. They're just really confident women, and the dilemma is they're in their own heads about whether they should take a chance or not.
Yeah, I mean the organization that I founded the organization along with my wife, and it is one that we built primarily because of inclusion.
Oh,
We started
cool.
about 3 years ago, and we just saw that there was this huge lack of that, and
Yeah.
I think people forget what inclusion stands for in terms of like they think like, oh, if you have women you're okay, but it's like it's diversity,
Hmm.
it's body types. There's a whole bunch of things that go into inclusive, being inclusive.
And
And
are you encourage, is it like inclusion for critics, like
Yeah.
A lot. Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, by all means, if you want, I obviously I don't know if we're going to be doing our event this year, but you are
Yeah,
more than welcome to join and come along.
that's
You
so
know, I think
cool.
Late Night was actually nominated for something last year.
No way. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
That's really cool. Because yeah, you're right. Like so many of the critics are, you know, men who have just been doing it for years, but not, getting more voices and getting more women as critics. Is so cool.
yeah. I thought about that earlier. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about like think about how dominated this industry is still, even though we have all this talk for the last 4 years since
Yeah,
Wonder Woman. I'll never forget it. Wonder Woman is kind of like the game changer that
yeah,
basically was like, we're had enough, we're not going to do this anymore. But still to this day, like I try to think of like a female critic that really stands out. And
yeah,
like, I actually like maybe Ann Thompson, like I could like I have to think about it, but like
yeah.
it's hard
Manola, of
to name
course.
them, like where I can go Scott Mance or Leonard Maltin or Peter Travers, like it just
Right.
they kind of just roll off the
Well,
tongue.
you're
So
right though, because like Pauline Kael was so like essential, and then where was the next generation of like Pauline Kaels or I guess I think Manola's kind of doing it. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree. Hey, I listen, and I love the fact that like we honestly are just having a conversation more than anything because I think those make for the best interviews.
well, it's so
Um,
cool because I never really, I just sort of made my first indie film not knowing anything about this industry. And then Stanley Kaufman wrote this review, and I read it about my indie film that I largely made from instinct. And I realized, oh, that's what I was doing. And then, like, the relationship between filmmaker and critic, I feel like it's so important to advance your own self and your art because you all sort of shine a light on what we're doing sometimes instinctually, and then it makes us go, oh yeah, that's what we're doing, and then we better, and then we better do it better. So it's such an interesting like relationship to me that's so encouraging and raises the level of art so quickly. It's really, I think, like just reading Pauline Kael's books and her criticism like helped me become a better filmmaker because she tells you like all good critics like what to focus on.
yeah. No, I think the relationship between critics and filmmakers and like storyteller like writers and directors and actors, I think is very, very important. And it's something that kind of goes overlooked. Um, and I love and I think this is also weird because in a time like this, I feel like this kind of platform that we're doing, where we have like more of like you step in my room a little bit, you get to see my background, you get to see a little bit of my personality,
Yeah.
I get to see a little bit of you. We have
Yeah.
more of this communication, which I feel like is a little bit different than if we were doing this in person. It's in a weird way.
You're right,
Um,
because we'd be in like some cafe somewhere or in a boardroom or
no, I
something.
think we would be in a junket room. There'd be someone on the
Yeah.
side of me telling me that I had 4 minutes and that I need to wrap up this interview very quickly,
Yeah.
and that I would
And
like get
that's
to
like,
ask you one
how are
or
we
two
going to get that?
questions, and that's it.
Yeah, there's no connection there at all.
No, it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, next here. Oh, the seat's hot. Keep going, keep going. So,
Yeah.
I know you have to run, but I do want to
Yeah.
ask you, one of my favorite up and coming actors right now, and I've been going to
Calvin.
bat for him since I was freaking blown away last year by
Yeah.
Loose and Waves. And yes, I'm talking about Calvin Harrison Jr. Um, how did you find him? How did and man, how did you unlock that magical voice of his that no
Oh
one
my
knew?
God. No one knew, right? I mean, I saw him in Loose and I thought, who is this kid? He's blowing me away. And then I met him and I was like, oh, he's not a kid at all. He's a man.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I just couldn't get him out of my head. And he kind of circled the part and then was unsure about whether he could do comedy, didn't know that he wanted to sing. And, I always, when I watch these movies, I always ask myself, like, as if I were directing that, would I go for a singer who can act or would I go for an actor who can sing? And I always landed on actor who could sing. Um, but this part scared me because that song he sings has to stop Maggie in her tracks and turn the whole movie. So if he didn't have that voice, the whole thing would kind of fall apart in that moment. So Calvin, though, I just knew he had the goods acting wise. And I did this screen test with him and Dakota, and he just lit up the screen. The two of them had so much chemistry and brought out this like lovely playfulness in each other. And he's such a good actor. He's so serious and he works so hard. And he was always like, I don't know how to do comedy, Nisha. And I was like, don't do comedy, just do you. Just be, you in the scene. And he has got that thing. Like you just can't take your eyes off of him. And he's got that sort of it's gonna sound like such a weirdo reference, but I think he's got that Hugh Grant thing, where you're like, he's good looking, he's got a cockiness, but it's charming, it's not off-putting. He's self-deprecating, but you buy him as smart, you buy him as talented, you buy him as empathetic. Like he's really got that leading man quality, and I think it's fun to watch him do this. I think he's going to be a leading man in a lot more movies now, but watching him just play the romantic comedy leading man was a joy. And that voice, oh my God, I can't wait till everybody can hear him singing.
Well, I got to tell you, I was very unaware of his involvement in this film in terms of like I knew he was in it because I'm a fan,
Yeah.
but based on the marketing campaign, you would think like he was going to be like somebody who like pops up for like 2 minutes and like says
I
hi.
know. Well, it's because of the twist. I
I
think it's
know,
too,
I know,
too,
I know.
yeah.
I
But
know, but
it's a
it's
shame
great that
because
you
he
hit
is so big.
you hit him, but it showcases his talent. I know him. I know his PR people. He's just like so humble, and like you said, like he doesn't realize like what he has. He doesn't
Yeah,
realize it.
he doesn't. And hopefully when he does, he'll still stay the humble, sweet guy we know now, which I think he will, because he's just a genuinely kind human being. And I think, and Tracy too. I mean, Tracy, and this is a testament to her mother, I think, and the mothering is that she is just a big, kind, generous heart in the world. And she's lovely and, an A-plus student, just works really hard, does all the homework, shows up, is ready to go, and then just open and fun and ready to play and discover new things too. You just couldn't ask for a more fun cast.
Okay. Well, I know John's going to kill me if I keep you on anymore. So I will let you go. It was
Yeah,
a pleasure, absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you
it
so
was
much for
such a
doing this.
pleasure talking to you, Scott. Thank you so much.